All right, welcome back. If you've just joined in, this is Good Morning Nigeria Friday's edition, live on our network service of the NTA. Let's give you a bit of business news now. We hear Nigeria is collaborating with some West African countries to enforce ban on donkey skin. Alika Okwanachi Adwa tells us all about it.
Donkey population in West Africa's sub-region is witnessing a rapid decline due to high demand from the Chinese skin trade market. A report by the Global Trade in Donkey Skin estimates that more than 4.8 million donkeys are trafficked and slaughtered each year for their skins, which is used in making portions and items presumed to have therapeutic cosmetic value. Nigeria is now collaborating with countries like Côte d'Ivoire, Niger, and Burkina Faso to halt the threatening trade. The Nigeria Agricultural Quarantine Service warned that a ban on illegal export of donkey skin has been in place to curb the overexploitation of the trade, and anyone caught will be punished, saying the exploitation of donkey hides remains on the export prohibition list. The Director General, NAQS, Vincent Isegbe, who disclosed this, said the situation had reached worrying levels. Now let's take a look at Thursday tradings on the floor of the exchange. With business news, Alika Okwanachi Arua.
Thank you very much, Alika, for the business package. Up next, newspaper review.
All right, it's another Friday. Bayo Atoyebi is right here in the studio to do what he knows how to do best.
Thank you, Claire. Good morning.
Good morning,
Bayo.
Kinsley.
Good morning.
Good to see you. All right, so let's go straight to business with the Nation newspaper. Above the nameplate, UK court adjourns hearing in Ekwerimadu's case till October 31st. Terrorism has not affected food production. Government, 3.6 million jobs created. Emir of Zazzau is Chancellor of Greenfield University. ITF upgrades Kano, Jos, and Lagos training centers. And below that, autumn terrorist attacks have claimed over 5,000 lives since 2011. That's on page 27. Lalong leads APC's Presidential Campaign Council, and Keyamo named interim spokesman, Musawa deputy. 2023, that's the kicker. PDP can win without Wike, Atiku tells party's BOT, as Board of Trustees. Buhari lost Rivers, yet won in 2015 and 2019. Runner-up raises posers at meeting with candidates. That's Wike, who was runner-up in the PDP primaries, raising posers with Atiku at their reconciliation meeting. Federal government and Google partner to block subversive YouTube channels. Federal government, Google partner to block subversive YouTube channels. Petrol importation. We can't compete with NNPC, says Ipman. JAMB's mop-up exam holds tomorrow. Killer of Akwa Ibom job seeker to die. That's the court verdict. Details on page 5. Clear.
Okay, let's take a look at Friday's Al Jazeera, and it leads with $418 million Paris Club refund. Again, governors tackle federal government over deductions. And other stories to the left-hand corner, that's to your right, Akwa Ibom job seekers killer to die by hanging. Details of that on page 9. And NLNG loses $7 billion to sabotage insecurity in 7 months. And on page 25, you find the story. APC appoints Lalong as Tinubu's campaign DG. Kiamo Dino campaign spokesman for APC and PDP. And to my right hand column, that's to your left, 8 banks report 176.11 billion naira profit. It's on page 8. On page 26, budget deficit rises to 30.58 trillion naira in 7 years. Again, on the same page, you find 17-year-old commits suicide over exam failure in Kwara State. That story is on page 12. And a little just below the nameplate, alleged 109.5 billion naira fraud. EFCC indicts Yuri, reveals how ex-AGF compromised TSA and others. That's the outlook on the Friday Al Jazeera bio.
Thank you, Claire.
Yes.
Well, the Akwa Ibom State High Court, sitting in Uyo, has sentenced Uduak Akpan to death by hanging for the murder of the job seeker Iniobong Umoren. He is alleged to have lured the poor girl who was seeking a job, raped her, and also killed her. Uduak Akpan was sentenced to life imprisonment for the rape component of the crime and is to die by hanging for the murder of the job seeker. There was a mild drama at the court because after the pronouncement, Uduak Akpan attempted to escape, but the police and a combination of correctional officers were able to restrain him and quickly take him to the Black Maria, the correctional vehicle, to carry him away to the prison. Meanwhile, the court also discharged and acquitted the Uduak Akpan's father and his sister because they had no complicity in the crime. Across in Imo State, the police command has reported to have neutralized a notorious kidnapper and armed robber known as Osita Ogbuyiri, otherwise known as Shina Rambo. Based on what the police described as technical intelligence, they were able to trace him to his hideout at Utuma and Ukwa within the border between Abia and Cross River State, and that was where he was neutralized. He is said to have escaped from the jail break at Owerri, which took place on 5th of April. So for criminals, no matter how hard or how long you try to run, the long arm of the law will eventually catch up with you. Former Inspector General of Police Mustapha Balogu is dead. His family confirmed his death yesterday at his home in Ila Orogun. He was the 21st Inspector General of Police. It may be recalled that during his tenure, he was arraigned for money laundering over $100 million and also faced a 70-count charge by the Economic and Financial Crime Commission. He entered into a plea bargain which led to him pleading guilty, and he was fined 500,000 for each count and sentenced to 6 months for 8 counts, for which he served the prison terms concurrently. He secured his release in February 2006. The service chiefs have now engineered an operation that is called Operation No Mercy to terrorists and kidnappers. The leadership reports that the Chief of Air Staff, Oladayo Amao, kick-started the air component at the Air Force Base in Kaduna yesterday. He was addressing the commanders of the air component commanders as well as air officer commanding, and the instruction was that they should continually stay ahead of the asymmetrical war and the unconventional nature of the terrorists and deny the terrorists any free movement. The instructions is that they should track down all these criminals without any mercy to ensure that they are not allowed to migrate from the northeast, north central, and northwest to other parts of the country. Senator Ike Ekweremadu had his day at the Central Criminal Court, London, otherwise known as Old Bailey. The judge adjourned the pre-hearing trial till October 31st. There are indications that the main trial will be beginning sometime in the first quarter of 2023. It may be recalled that Senator Ekweremadu and his wife were arrested upon arrival to London on June 23rd based on allegation of procuring a minor for organ harvest. The Oxbridge Court had clarified that the chap involved is not a minor.
Mm. Okay,
so that is the outlook. Yes. Except that
yes, I have an interesting story. It's on the inside page of the Al Jazeera. It's an economic story, and this is a commendable, effort by the FCTA administration. It has trained over 600 women and youths on what? Greenhouse farming. Greenhouse farming. I mean, this is, I'm excited about this for, a couple of reasons. First, it's going to empower, especially women. It's going to, at least increase, their capacity, to purchase, to spend. It's also going to give them more jobs. But the issue of space becomes a challenge. Even within your vicinity, most residents within the FCT have limited space to even practice the greenhouse, farming. And that will also go a long way to, give us some confidence in our food security if it does, work out. So that's a very encouraging effort, at least.
But there is an FCT policy that discourages farming within the precinct of residents. And that is going to be another big challenge. Because when you talk about greenhouse farming, what extent are you going to have it? Is it within the domestic premises, or you have to acquire special land locations to carry out this greenhouse farming? There is another form of farming too, which is chemically based, and it can be done. Some do theirs in sacks within the premises. In fact, I was fascinated when I saw one where they grew yam tubers in sacks, empty sacks, and they grew other plants who were grown in sacks. That is a way of economizing space, and you'll be able to utilize a very little space to produce some domestic produce that can be help elevate the economic status of the city.
Both techniques should be extended to the civil servants, since that's the only venture allowed them, so that they too can leverage the benefit of the greenhouse farming and the technique you just talked about, and also take part in agribusiness. I think it is an effort that gladdens my heart, and I wish civil servants too can benefit from that. Another story, Bayo, and that also makes me happy this morning is goodness Nwachukwu of Nigeria. That's at the ongoing Birmingham, Commonwealth Games. In two throws, discus throws for the Paralympics, she broke world records. The first was 34 point something, seconds, and the other was 36. And she shattered the records and placed Nigeria on, the golden map. So I think we have how many golds now? About
at the last count, if I have not lost count, I counted at least five times Nigerians were challenged to arise compatriots, and the national anthem was sung at the podium in Birmingham. And I felt very proud.
And someone said the women. Okay, go ahead.
There's another story on page 6 of the Nation newspaper. It's an obituary. Respected professor of geography, Akin Mabogunje, has passed on. He was 90 years. And I'm sure for generations of Nigerians, the name Akin Mabogunje will always ring a bell. He was ever present, and he was strong right up to his 80s. You've had condolence messages pouring in now from President Muhammadu Buhari, the governor of Ogun State, and others. It was pretty very close to former President Olusegun Obasanjo. So this would be a personal loss to him. I mean, he raised a generation of scholars in that field, whether you call it regional planning, urban planning, or geography in general. He was a highly respected academic worldwide, and particularly for us here in Nigeria. He made tremendous contributions to our nation's development. May his soul rest in peace.
And on the international scene, barely 5 months after the Russia-Ukrainian war, China is warning and starting military operations again in protest about Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, visit to Taiwan. And Taiwan is now saying that the military exercise is a violation of its own territorial integrity because it's coming towards its own waters, and China is threatening.
I don't know. That's it's scary. Well, let's see how it plays out.
Well, sometimes some of these provocative acts are just difficult to understand because the details behind those actions are hardly ever disclosed. You ask yourself occasionally why the United States would opt to be foraging for trouble in other regions of the world. For the most part now, there's a clear recognition and acknowledgement of one China policy. That is to say that Taiwan is not regarded as a sovereign state, but as part of the People's Republic of China, which is mainland China. As much as possible, countries try to sidestep having either diplomatic relations or elevated diplomatic interactions with Taiwan. What did Nancy Pelosi go to do in Taiwan? And look at the flotilla of ships, the squadron of jets and other aircraft that would have been scrambled to ensure that she had a safe passage. So that's that. And already the U.S. legislature has also given approval for Finland and Sweden to become members of NATO. That's fine. But we have seen what Russia is doing with Ukraine. And despite all the sanctions that the West imposed on Russia, but Russia has not collapsed. I mean, you can say it's early days for all of that, but we have also seen the consequences of those wars around the world, particularly in terms of energy supplies to Europe and the food crisis that have arisen on account of great stoppages. One of the key things sometimes is, again, is the business of the policy planners in the western part of the world. I think that in the case of Russia, Russia was grossly underestimated in terms of its contributions to the global economy, whether in terms of energy, in terms of agriculture, along, of course, with Ukraine. Who would have known, but for this crisis, that Ukraine was a major supplier of grains to the rest of the world, sunflower oil, and so on and so forth. And of course, agricultural studies take place in most institutions in Ukraine. And then the sources of energy that some of the traders dispose of in continental Europe, these are things that come from Russia. So sometimes the world does need peace, and the world needs reasonable statesmen to ensure that war is averted.
Unfortunately, about 5 million people now have been forced to leave Ukraine.
Bayo, we must round off, but of course not without congratulating the governor of Plateau State, for his appointment. But of course, it means hard work ahead for him and his team. So, Bayo, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
And we'll see you here on Monday by God's grace. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. As a prompt for our conversation, which is on combating human trafficking in Nigeria, let's listen to this background report put together by Kenwe Ndulwe, our correspondent.
Human trafficking is a global pandemic that stemmed from the era of slavery and is still very much prevalent today. It has become a worldwide industry, incorporating millions of people annually and generating an annual turnover in billions of dollars. But the snag is, the goods and services being dealt on are real people with tears, blood, feelings and relatives. Victims are often recruited, transported and subjected into forced labor, slavery, servitude and prostitution by traffickers. The latest twist to the crime is trafficking in persons for the purpose of harvesting their organs, which is largely driven by global shortage in organs for ethical transplant. The stories are grim and often impossible to confirm, usually involving illicit clinics, corrupt doctors, and global networks dealing in human flesh. At the risk of exploitation are North and West Africa, with great population of impoverished and displaced communities. The physical and psychological abuse that comes with trafficking are enormous, making victims vulnerable to depression, diseases, abuse of fundamental human rights, and even death. Estimates released by the Global Slavery Index in July 2018 indicate that there are 40.3 million victims of modern slavery worldwide. In Nigeria, NAPTIP is charged with the responsibility of enforcing laws against human trafficking, and facts from this organization are quite revealing. Nigeria is designated a major source, transit, and destination country when it comes to human trafficking, ranking 32 out of 167 countries with highest number of slaves. NAPTIP contends that 75% of victims in Nigeria are trafficked across states, 23% trafficked within states, while only 2% are trafficked outside the country. Poverty, conflict, ignorance, and greed are said to be some of the underlying factors, while some people fall victims of human trafficking. On this episode of Good Morning Nigeria, guests shall be looking at issues around human trafficking and how these can be combated.
Very worrisome trend indeed, human trafficking, especially as it concerns women and girls. Now, we have in the studio to speak more and give us more perspective to this trend, Arinze Orakwe. And Arinze is Director, Training and Manpower, National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP. Thank you, Mr. Orakwe, for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Also here with us in the studio to share her perspective is Abimbola Adeumi, and she's team leader, human trafficking and migrant smuggling unit of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime, UNODC. Thank you, Bimbola, for joining us.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
All right, still with us here in the studios is Bello Motosho, who is a technical advisor in governance action against trafficking in persons and smuggling of migrants project being implemented with funding from the European Union. We're glad to have you, Bello.
Thank you so much, and for this platform.
And joining us via Zoom from Lagos is Reverend Father Emeka Obiezu, Director, Augustinian Center for Advocacy, Justice and Peace, and is also the National Coordinator of Civil Society Network on Migration and Development. Father Emeka, we're glad to have you this morning.
Good morning, all.
All right, let's begin with NAPTIP. Are we making any progress in having a climb down from what we used to hear in the past with regard to human trafficking, or the figures are escalating?
No, we're making a lot of progress. We're making a lot of progress because looking at the 5 P's, which is prostitution, prevention, policy, and other P's. If you look at prostitution, NAPTIP has been able to bring to justice 525 traffickers to justice. That means they've been convicted and they have served jail terms for their crimes against Nigerian children. Then, in rehabilitation. 17,124 have been done that in conjunction. This was something they did with the IOM International Bureau for Migration. And we have in 26 states in the country. We have a state task force. We have task force. This is chair of the organization, civil societies, police, Nigerian Immigration Service, and the different states.
I'm sorry, I would have to pause you for a while. I think we've got some listening challenge. We'll just quickly, rectify it and come back to you. In the meantime, let's also put the question to Reverend Father Emeka Ubiezo, who is the director of the Augustinian Center for Advocacy, Justice and Peace, and he's joining us via Zoom from Lagos. So I'll also repeat the same question Kingsley put to NAPTIP. Are we making progress with our efforts to stem human trafficking? We've been getting a wave of reports in a couple of days.
Good morning, everyone, and good morning for having me here this morning and with my colleagues there in the studio. The issue of human trafficking, as our colleague from NAPTIP started talking about, is very grave in terms of how it impacts humanity and Nigeria also as a state. Directed to the question of whether we're making progress or not, I think we could say yes in the positive, that we are making progress from Nigeria front. The establishment of NAPTIP, the coordination of migration management in Nigeria entirely, that brings up all stakeholders, state and non-state actors, better organizing among these actors themselves have also contributed to the progress we are making. Now, it is easier for people to actually know where to track these persons. New routes are identified and followed. More reports are coming up and synergies are being created towards ensuring that especially the victims of these heinous activities are protected. Within the civil society front, we have a network, NACTA, which is Network Against Trafficking and Child Labor, is also organized in such a way that the activities of its members across the states. Yes.
Obianzo, thank you for the moment. We'll come back to the studio and let's also put the same question to Abimbola, who is a representative of the UN, team leader of the UNODC. Mr. Rakwe did say that yes, answered in the affirmative, progress is being made, but I'd like you to contextualize this progress. Is it in terms of prosecutions or is it in terms of actually stemming the tide of frequency?
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, he mentioned when he was talking about the 5 Ps, which is like the framework for which NAPTIP's response to combat trafficking in persons. And the 5 Ps has to do with prevention, protection, policy, partnership, and prosecution. Those are the 5 areas. So when you're combating human trafficking, the way Nigeria has structured it is to look at all of the indicators, from making sure that people are not trafficked, which this with the prevention side, but making sure that protection is provided to vulnerable people even before being trafficked, and after they are trafficked, that protection services is also available for them. And then, of course, providing a policy and enabling environment to ensure that when we prosecute, they get the maximum penalty for the action that they have committed as traffickers, and even those that are aiding them as well. And then, of course, we have the partnership side, which means that all of us seated here, you have FIAPIA, you have NAPTIP, you have Father Emeka over there, IOM, everybody, even the state task forces, the NACTAL, the Network of Civil Society Organizations Against Child Trafficking, Abuse and Labor, NACTAL, they are all there, all of us working towards the same thing, to achieve the same goal, that we want to combat human trafficking in Nigeria. So with this, I believe that we are making progress, because when you look at how we started 10 years, a decade ago and more, you will see that Nigeria has really gone far in terms of being able to put media attention, world attention, and everybody's attention towards the plight of human trafficking.
Putting structures and framework, but is it any better now? Is trafficking any better now than it was 10 years ago?
Well, now, because of enlightenment, you find that there's a lot of reporting. Before, it was there and it was also massive. But because there were no channels to report them, because now in Nigeria, we have the hotline 627 short code, which people can actually use to call and report cases of human trafficking. We also have the 12-digit numbers that NAPTIP uses. So there are a lot of facilities, both at national level, at state level, and the local level, where the NGOs come in for people to actually go. Before, those cases were actually going to the police stations because they were the closest to the community. But now, because you now have strengthened the community response through the NGOs, people one-on-one even get reports of human trafficking and they intercede to do rescue, to do referral. We have all the frameworks even for referral. We have the national referral mechanism guideline for to refer victims from the point of interception of identification to the point of when they get all the services. Before in Nigeria, you see that trailer loads of vulnerable children are being commuted from one rural area to another point, and nobody is going to raise an eyebrow to say, oh, what is happening? Are these children being trafficked? But now, because it's not only NGOs and state task forces, but the response also includes law enforcement agencies. So we're saying, FROSC, you are the one on the road. NAPTIP is not on the road. We're not on the road. When you see something suspicious, please refer. So those are some of the engagements that we are doing, and of course, with everybody being attentive and being looking at every crime scene with the eyes of human trafficking, a lot of reports is coming in, and that's why you think that it's getting more. But because we are getting a lot of reports,
And in that case, you're having more prevention than what you had previously. I want to return to Reverend Father Emeka Obiezu and just put Bello Omotosho on hold at the meantime. Father Obiezu, tell us, what have been the critical success factors in preventing more incidents of human trafficking, particularly cross-border?
Hello? Please, could you come again?
What have been the critical success factors in preventing cross-border trafficking of persons?
I think leaning also on what Bimbo has just said, I think it is about synergy and great awareness that has been raised within the Nigerian states are different across different states using different media. In different schools today, some institutions have made efforts to also create a program of awareness as part of their daily educational programs. And I think FIA person there would also talk about so much energy that has also put into inter-ministerial and multi-actors training and capacity building on issues of identifying warning signs and also responding abruptly, when such things happen. So in a nutshell, I think it is issue of better organizing, greater awareness, and also the systems that have been put in place in border management and all this that has reduced it. And Nigerians are having better perception of what migration is and the dangers of irregular migration. The warning signs also make potential vulnerable persons aware of the danger they may be getting in. My organization daily put up through different social means what we call migration signs to let people know in the various ways they can if you are a potential victim. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Father Emeka Obiezu. We'll come back to you. But Bello Motoshop, let's also get your take on this. If we are making success in preventing cross-border human trafficking, what is working and what is still difficult to deal with.
Thank you so much once again for giving us this opportunity to be part of this discussion. Let me start by saying that what is working is the fact that we've been able to come together to sit and look at the issue of trafficking. If it's not working, obviously we won't have a platform for us to sit and cross-fertilize ideas on what has been the issue of trafficking in our country. So obviously what is working basically, one is partnership. It is part of the 5P that NAPTIP has adopted as a strategy to combat trafficking in persons. So partnership has been able to bring to the fore the fact that trafficking exists as a modern day slavery, which all actors are coming together to combat. Secondly, the fact that we have taken prevention to another level, where like Father Emeka said, when you look at schools, some schools have included this as part of their curriculum to ensure that even those that we think may not be vulnerable, but they are aware of the existence of human trafficking, which anybody can tag modern day slavery. So when they are aware, they become what we call a vanguard who can assist to pass this message to those that may be vulnerable to being trafficked. So partnership prevention, which NAPTIP, of course, commendation has been given to NAPTIP for all the awareness creation they've been doing all over. If you check their social media handle, you see that more often than not, they are all over giving sensitizations to different sectors of our economy to ensure that everybody is on board and they are very aware of what are the indicators, the red flags that inform you when trafficking is about taking place. Also, you also have to give commendations to the international partners who have been able to give enough support to Nigerian government to ensure that trafficking is combated to the barest minimum. But when we look at the fact that, I mean, like the other time we said, is it on the increase or we're still where we are? Don't forget that the population of Nigeria in the year past is not what it is today. And that we have population explosion also tells you that people want to seek opportunity elsewhere. But in doing that, they did not take their time to understand what are the challenges associated with some of those moves. And that is the reason why you may think, with all this concerted effort from all different actors, that this will have been fought to a standstill. It can't be fought to a standstill, but can always continue to address the menace. So what is working basically is partnership and prevention activities by the various actors in trafficking space.
You know, I do have an opinion about the context of progress that we're making with regards to fighting human trafficking. And as you all have said, progress, yes, you know, substantial, appreciable progress is being made in the areas of 2 P's that I can identify: prosecution and, of course, partnership. I mean, there's no doubt that we now have, you know, more partnership, like, you know, my brother here. But in the area of policy and prevention, which is the cocoa, the crux of the matter when we're talking about success, a lot has happened. Like they say, a lot of water has passed under the bridges within the past 10 years. Globalization is widening, you know, creating room for you know, a lot of interaction, unhindered interaction. World economies are contracting, also bringing up, you know, issues which trigger, you know, I mean, factors for exploitation. I would like for you to speak to these factors, these 2 areas. What are we doing in terms of prevention, which is the core? I don't know. Mr. Rakwe, you want to take it up?
Yeah, for prevention at the level of awareness creation, we've done a lot. Because what have we done? Let me start with Izozo. Izozo was a television series drama that ran for 20 weeks. That's at the level of prevention. After that, we did Itoha. Itoha ran for 35 weeks on NTA and other media outfits. And again, we created anti-trafficking vanguards in schools, anti-trafficking brigades in schools. We left there, and with the support of ICMPD, ICM being International Center for Migration Policy Development, we're able to infuse anti-trafficking issues into the curriculum. So that if you look at where question papers now, you are going to say anti-trafficking questions, you know, and trafficking issues were infused into 6 subjects. So students now study it and they now understand what trafficking is. So you cannot say people are not aware of trafficking in person, but society is dynamic and you expect that crime and criminality is not something that will end within a snap of fingers. So these things are there. And so long as the space for economy is constricting, like you mentioned, and the global economy is also constricting, there's also advances being made in science and technology. So the Zoom is there. All these social media platforms are there. And for UNODC, who are the domiciles of anti-trafficking, the anti-trafficking, you find out that protocol. You find out that what has happened that this year at the World Against Trafficking, what they did was that the theme was technology use and abuse, because traffickers are now going out of the way to recruit people, to lure people, using all this Facebook, all these platforms. And so the world, the globe, there's been a global concern that we now begin to think along that area. And what has NAPTIP done? NAPTIP is also meeting them at those points. We are now creating that awareness. Just like we said, there are the state task forces that have been, through the with the support of my Director General, Dr. Fatima Waziri, has made that all this in 26 states they have. We are having them, and their job is to locate the particular material for local consumption of this in those different states, in their particular favor, in the way they want to do it. So it's not just me, us, NAPTIP at the federal. So at in that direct nooks and crannies, activities are being carried out with the instrumentality of NGOs, police, and civil defense, because now the civil defense has an trafficking unit, police has an trafficking units, the immigration has an trafficking unit, and all of us are working, seamlessly.
Yes, all that you have said.
Yes.
At least I remember it well. But were you able to measure the outcomes in terms of effectiveness, whether it has impacted in a drop, in the data, or it has, it's just there?
No, now the question you're going, what are the triggers of trafficking in persons? Our people say, so long as the rotten tooth is not pulled out, the mouth must chew with caution. So have we been able to deal with the triggers? If you don't deal with the triggers, naturally human beings will still do the kind of things they want to do. So I'm not saying it's a slap in the ocean. The fact is that the awareness, we're increasing the awareness. We're not stopping at that. But those triggers of poverty, those triggers of inequality, those triggers of disequilibrium in deprivation, those triggers are there, and actually, they are still an increase.
Which is why Abimbola would like you to also speak to this, because when you're dealing with an emerging generation, and sometimes when you take time to hear what their own dreams are like, what their views about Nigeria are like, you get concerned. And it might just be that they could fall into the vulnerable category. You would hear some persons without evidence, without even giving themselves a try, who would declare that they have no faith or hope in the environment.
Exactly.
And when you try to draw their attention to the fact that there are many success stories, many success stories around them, they are adamant. And they will tell you that their destiny lies out there. Have we been targeting, if I say we now, the various agencies involved through your partnership and collaboration? Have you been targeting advocacy messages to these vulnerable categories of persons to say, look, have a change in orientation? What Orakwe explained is useful. Yes, you know what trafficking is all about now. Yes, so you get it part of the curriculum, you get it in your question. But how does that change my mind? To say, look, when you hear a young person say this environment is hopeless, and yet from the same hopeless environment, his father or his mother has a roof over their heads and they're able to sleep. They are not on the street panhandling. So what is being done in this respect?
All right, thank you. UNODC has a curriculum called Education for Justice, E4J. And the E4J is actually targeting tertiary institutions, universities, where they can take some of the modules from the courses and use it during their lectures. That is one harm of it. Then the second one, we have the I Am Priceless campaign. And what the I Am Priceless, it has even become like almost a global campaign of the blue hats, which my colleague, Mr. Arize, is wearing. And what we did was to even customize it into local fabric in Nigeria, because we know that Nigeria will like things that are like uniform. So it represented an identity of the fact that we need to end human trafficking in Nigeria. And what we did was to actually go from school to school, including even putting up debates for school children to be able to talk about human trafficking and how they view how we can impact that generation of young people. Aside from that, we have also looked at issues that can promote opportunities for young people, and using different kinds of mentorship approach. We have our UNV, United Nations Volunteer Programs, that is to bring youths that are out, that have finished school into the UN system to learn and also know how to be responsible adults, so that they can become like brand influencers or ambassadors to their peers. And then the vanguard that Omotosho spoke about, the vanguard is not just for the fact that we wanted to create school clubs, because that's one of the approach that even UNODC also adopted. But we want a group that, apart from being able to learn about human trafficking, they can also do peer-to-peer exchange among themselves. So by word of mouth, they can influence their families, because those are the first points of needs that those young people need to do. And then thereby also influencing the general public at large. So there are different ways that UNODC and other partners alike have been engaging with the youth to ensure. In fact, recently when we had the World Trafficking, the 2022 World Trafficking Day, we had a school debate between Blaise University and the Veritas University, and it was still on this topic of human trafficking. And all of this is actually to create awareness among the youths, to create awareness among the young people. In fact, the people that would put themselves out to be trafficked will still put themselves out. I remember a situation in Ondo State where we had a sensitization campaign, and the Attorney General of the state, who is the chairman of the state task force, was with us. And, you know, we were in the marketplace talking about human trafficking. Mothers, fathers, don't give your young people, always ask questions when somebody says, I'm taking them to Spain or I'm taking them to Italy. And I was with this woman that was selling fish in the market there. And I was giving her the scenario of the lady that was trafficked and then was used for, she was trafficked for domestic servitude. She was used for sexual exploitation. And then she was also introduced to substance abuse. And when they brought her, they dropped her at the airport here because she was now mentally unstable. So I was telling the woman the story that these children, they meet a lot of things when they go out. She said, that one is not my portion. God forbid, where my own goes, it will go and it will succeed.
You know, I like for us to look at targeted strategy. You just talked about Veritas and basically, and I'm wondering if the type of victims or the caliber of victims we saw, you know, in the short clip done by our correspondent, are those that will be, you know, attending Veritas and based universities. I'd like for you, are we targeting our approach rightly? That's one. And two, are we also paying more attention to criminalizing the act rather than encouraging policies that will address the triggers? And I ask because in some of the experiences shared, you know, victims have complained about not being involved in the decisions about, you know, their integration into the society. Sometimes they complain about the kind of mentorship programs or skills acquisition programs that they receive and all that. So, which again, at the end of the day, we end up not achieving much. I don't know. Maybe you want to take it up.
All right. I'll start from the policy side. Just like we know that UNODC is the custodian of the Convention Against Transnational Organized Crime, and then the protocol to prevent, suppress, and punish trafficking in persons, especially of women and children. And so our mandate is quite clear in terms of what we need to do. And for UNODC, when it comes to the issue of criminality, the Nigerian law, that's the Trafficking in Persons Prohibition, Enforcement and Administration Act of 2015, is quite clear. Even when it's going to penalize or punish or criminalize the person that carried out the trafficking, but everybody that is involved in the chain and the process that aid and abets, all of them, once found guilty, will also,
including the victims.
No, aside from the victims. But the fact, because the law says that procures, transport, harbors. So even if they kept the victim in your house, you cannot claim that you did not know. You are already part of the chain of the exploitation of that child or of the young adults that was trafficked. So everybody in that chain except for the victim. And then now, victims, before, in this Nigeria, we've seen, before 10, 20 years ago, we've seen when victims are repatriated and deported straight away and treated as criminals when they land here in Nigeria. But all of that has changed now.
But you still parade them. They're still being paraded.
Well, I think we allow nothing.
Let me come in. The victims cannot be paraded by NAPTIP. Part of the reasons why we are doing a lot of exchanges and training for other sister law enforcement agencies, we're doing one probably on the 28th with the police, and we have had, through the instrumentality of the police IG, to get all the police anti-trafficking commands for a particular training to build synergy in areas like this. Because the UN protocol says that victims are not criminals, and Nigeria signed on to that. So you cannot treat them any less. They are victims, even in the process of, in their stage of status of being a victim. If they committed any crime, you cannot hold it against them. That's what the law says. So, and Nigeria has adopted it. So when things like that happen, it is actually out of ignorance because they do not know. And NAPTIP, the Director General said, we must train civil defense, Nigeria police, every organization that had to do in any way that come across victims, so that they bring them at pair. We share with them the referral mechanism so that they know what to do at what stage. The idea of profiling, please send them to us, we will do. Right now, it's become increasingly difficult for you to even adopt a child and take the child out of this country. Because at the airport, immigration has a template of referrals of the things to look out for when you bring a child. There are issues of a woman who maybe came in a month ago, normal and clean, just 1 month after, now wants to travel and says he has a 2-month-old baby. Madam, but when you came in, you weren't pregnant. So how did you come? How come? You know, so those are the things that as they evolve, you know, these things come up. Like you said in your question, the thing is that those who do not know might want to, in a bid, you know, to show that we are working and we are doing work. We are working. You know, we've been able to cause some interceptions at whatever and every level, but that is not an excuse. The fact is that we are going to, we want to train them, want to make them understand that these are victims. Amongst those victims are actually criminals. Maybe they are traffickers amongst them, because a trafficker is never a mile away from his or her merchandise. Because that's the way they see victims. So if you bring them to us, don't show them, the credit still goes to you. In NAPTIP, the work that NAPTIP will do is to silently profile them, give credit to you in our report to the U.S. Embassy, to the U.S. government when they do for their state decision, to UNODC and all our partners, because we have a stakeholder. And in our stakeholders meetings, which is the Build Partnership, all our partners come and they share with us the things they've done. So it's not in any way done to denigrate victims. Those who do that in ignorance and they don't know, and it's wrong.
Mr. Orakwe, Bello, I would like you to listen to this, but I want to start off with Mr. Orakwe in terms of training,
yes,
capacity building, and exposure. The more we've discussed this now, the more I believe that the media itself ought to have some introspection. Yeah. I don't know how much capacity building NAPTIP has undertaken for the media, or how much support the media have received to enable them to some things. And I just give you an example. You talked about the application of theater, yes, Izozo and Itoha. Yeah. But for a number of years, CNN, for instance, ran the anti-slavery project.
Yeah, freedom.
Let's ask yourselves this question, and it also goes to Reverend Father. Why is it difficult for the Nigerian media to say, look, we are going to Italy, we are going to Spain, we are going to Portugal, we are going to wherever is the capital of trafficking of Nigerians, to go and do an undercover report, a series of reports, rather than the theater, and then when you come back home, you explode it, and that becomes the subject of conversation. Because some persons might see, because Claire was asking me about the measurement of the impact of Izozo and Itoha. And somebody said that's movie. But why do you think it's been challenging for the Nigerian media to undertake this kind of editorial project? Because it is out there, the evidence is just out there.
Yeah.
Are we waiting for press statements or what? I'm a media person, and I know that this question means that the muzzle is also fired at me. So
now the challenge has been this: it behoves the media or whatever organization that is interested in doing that to seek support. There's IOM, International Organization for Migration. There is UNODC. There's FIA. There's Expertise Front. There are lots of organizations, even embassies that will gladly support NTA, AIT, or other organizations to pursue that line of action, to go and get this information, because then it will be unbiased, it will be green, it will be unfettered. They will get there. Nobody is there to tell you what to do. You're going to speak with the victims. The only thing there is that I know that so many individuals have done their documentary. The interpretation when they come back here is left for whichever organization that handled that. I don't know. But I know that I have taken, when Gabriel Odu, one of your colleagues, had worked with us for a long time, the media had been trained. Media actually knows that. Thank God that you now question, but why are they showing their face when they showed it? Because that came as a result of training and interaction with the media. So they now know that the thing is to protect this individual and not to re-stigmatize the victim when you go and put them in face. Because those who see their faces, those who know them, will now say, so this is what this girl has gone to do. And it is not good for that girl. You will still need to give her a life after this trauma. Remember, she didn't go there willy-nilly. She went there because somebody lured her, somebody took her away, somebody had exploited her by the route of false premises and false whatever that they have abroad. But what I can say is that a good concept note, NAPTIP definitely will support it. I will tell you that NAPTIP will support such. We will actually help you source for, there could be a multi-stakeholder intervention or support to cause that at least the cameraman and whatever goes there. I've done one or two, with some individuals supported by UNODC. UNODC funded it at then, and we went to Italy. We went to Turin, spoke to some of, before them, what we did was to liaise with some NGOs that are working there, and we did a good job. So if you bring a very good concept note, I promise you that NAPTIP will definitely step in, shape it up, and source for get our partners to please see this is what Nigerian government wants to do on its own. So we are not going to be looking for airtime when that is produced. Okay, so those are the kind of things we want to do, and because by then it will be something that is fresh and completely directly NTA or whatever organization that does that, and not NAPTIP will say NAPTIP had done a bit of clearing, and it's not what
that's fantastic, and I'm sure that our bosses are listening, and just before you leave the studio, you will get requests, proposals.
No, well, that wasn't the intent. I mean, that's fine. I mean, thanks for the offer, but I mean, that wasn't the intention. Because, I mean, from an editorial point of view, there are many perspectives to this. Earlier, we talked about, it could be women who have been trafficked and then, of course, got into sex slavery, got into domestic slavery. But there are also the young boys. There are the young boys just having a trail of the hazard.
Yeah.
that they went through, because some persons just think that the Mediterranean, for instance, is like Jabi Lake if you are here in Abuja, or it's like River Niger.
You don't even need to go far.
Let me bring in Father. Let me bring in Reverend Father Obieze into our conversation. And they say we are a transit country. I don't know, but there are countries that are, receiving countries, and we know those countries, especially in Europe. And is it that these countries do not know that, these activities go on within their countries? What is the role of these some of these countries in the efforts to stem the tide? Are they cooperative?
Oh, okay. Thank you. Let me make my contribution right now because I might be leaving very soon for another program. I would come to this question immediately, but let me chime in one of few things that my colleagues here have pointed at. I have two questions that were so germane to the discussion. Apart from the awareness creating, what do we do to ensure that the outcome of it is that there is no more trafficking? Mr. Arokwa alluded to the fact that the trigger factor, which is the remote causes of this, have not actually been dealt with. There are two extent to which these agencies could deal with that, as long as there are national issues. The socioeconomic situation of the country makes it still a proclivity for people who do not find opportunity to live to be prey to such acts of trafficking. And we also have to remember again that it is not simple. It is not just only about sexual exploitation that trafficking in persons come into. Most of these also happen in cases of recruitment for job, which we have seen in the case of the new phase of direction of work today from Nigeria to the Arab countries, especially the GCC countries. The issues of recruitment is where most of these sex trafficking activities happen also. And why these people still pray to that? Because they still need their daily bread, and which they have not received, and they still move ahead. To some extent, I would say that from the whole bucket of Nigerian migration management, effort is being made to mainstream migration issues into the national development. With the establishment of the Federal Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development, as it were, which coordinates most of these agencies that deal with migration and trafficking issues. Attempt is being made to ensure that one, returnees are keyed into some of these development issues, empowers and the rest of them. SMIDEN is being used to train these people when they return as well. And then opportunities are created for the young persons. We have not reached where we want to in terms of how the individual person will have created opportunity to ensure that they are not vulnerable to the point of being exploited. That's that. Coming to your question of receiving countries or destination countries, of course, we know what sustains this inhuman act is demand. As long as demand continues to be demand in cheap labor, demand in sexual exploitation or extortions, and all those things which continue, will continue to make syndicates apply this trade. I would also want to say, using most countries that's referred to as the chief, the main host countries, efforts are being made there. I think it's the collaboration of countries like Italy with Nigeria that have also funded and programs that are helping Nigeria come back. In Italy, my organization collaborates with a whole lot of groups. We have a group of religious men and women who walk the streets of Italy, seek out these victims, provide shelter for them in Italy, process their return here. We intercept these persons and continue to work with them down here. So there is also in the same of energy and effort. People out there are doing their bit. Collaboration is also making it to yield a kind of a result that brings the person back for this. But again, it's a crime. People who play crime issues will always try to be a step ahead of those who fight against it. Thank you. As I said, I might be leaving right now to join a program at 8:30. Thank you.
All right, Reverend Father Emeka Obiezu, we'd like to thank you for being our guest on Good Morning Nigeria today. We hope to have you some other time if we do return to this subject or any ancillary issue arising from our conversation this morning. You joined us via Zoom from Lagos. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Now back to the studios here. Bello Motoshow, there are two issues on the table, but I'd like you to comment on the aspect relating to sufficient media education that could trigger advocacy editorial reportage. Advocacy to say the kind of series that you get, this is your first-hand account in undercover, and so on and so forth, that different destinations, different locations. Abibola earlier talked about the entire value chain. If you were to focus on each of those aspects, I bet you, from an editorial point of view, you will have a series to run. And the impact will be there because the product is yours. So what is it that needs to be done to have a reorientation of the media? And if that hasn't been done before now, why did you have this lacuna?
Thank you so much. Like Ogarinze did explain, when we have to do with undertaking maybe undercover operation for us to be able to project in the true picture what the experiences of some of our citizens over there are, we'll come back to that. But when it has to do with engaging the media, continuous engagement of the media, I want to look at it from some of the things that have taken place with the media reporters. Of course, and we are not just focusing on the conventional media. We do understand that media has taken a different dimension. Even though almost everybody has tagged themselves a reporter these days because of the advent of social media. But we also identify the fact that we cannot do away with those who are in the forefront of reporting issues in the country. So on this premise, we've been able to undertake a very intensive media engagement via training of reporters who undertake activities of trafficking. Series of this training have taken place, and I'm aware that ENDs have done theirs. FIAP, recently we did a training for media reporters in Kefi, where people from various media houses, both print and electronic, were brought together. And of course, NAPTI was also brought in for them to understand how do they report issues of trafficking. Because important, like you have said, when we look at the background this thing that was played for us, we realized that there was issue of stigmatization where people's confidentiality have been revealed. So when the media does not even understand how issues should be properly reported, it becomes an issue itself because they may be the one that's stigmatizing some of these victims. Now, at the same time, we also took our training further by engaging the social media handlers. We realized that there's need for us to bring together some of our partners, those who handle their social media, because sometimes the kind of information that goes out from this handle, goes a long way to either deter people from, being trafficked, or it encourages them. So we feel these are very important segment of persons that should be brought together and train on how do they dish out information to the general public. But by and large, from what he said, I'm looking forward to a case where we can have a consortium of international partners supporting some of our media reporters, where they can undertake, on the spot, investigation to some of this country. Because I think that would be the best way for us to project the reality of what Nigerians are going through over there. But when it has to do media engagement, we have been doing it continuously, and we still have more of it coming. I'm happy to inform you that NTA
Thanks a lot. We're talking about the point one is driving. It has to do with investigative journalism, really, and we understand what you're having here is media engagement. The training sessions you've had in the past are also useful. But just to underscore the fact that for the media to be successful in its investigative activities, it cannot do it alone. It will need the support of a number of agencies and entities that are engaged in the activities, particularly in driving your 5 Ps. First of all, you have to have the basic information, you have to have contacts, and so on and so forth before they plot their way. But I think, as we have agreed, one of the things that is required to be done as part of the measures to combat human trafficking. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with the conversation.
All right, welcome back. And you're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Our conversation is on curbing human trafficking, which is increasing at a very alarming, worrisome. I don't know what adjective you may want to use to qualify the trend, but it is climbing, and something must be done. And we have our guests also, of course, see with us. Irene Zorakwe is the director from NATIP. We have Bimbola Adeomi from UNODC. We also have here with us Omotosho, who is a service provider, if I should say that. Okay, so let's look at how to reintegrate victims. I believe that is also one of the responsibilities of NAPTIP. And I'd like to know what kind of services you provide. How do you go about reintegrating victims when they do get back home?
Okay. The first thing that the agency does under our protection services is, first of all, referral. With the referral mechanisms are there, which we do share with our not just service providers, but also other sister law enforcement agencies and NGOs. And NAPTIP has 10 shelters. And those shelters are located in all our zonal offices. These are closed shelters. They are not shelters that are known to the public because of the fact of the importance of the people that we're dealing with, their life and everything about them. So there's psychosocial support. The moment a victim is received by NAPTIP, until that victim leaves, it's NAPTIP responsibility to clean, to feed, to protect, to provide for, health, everything. What our wish is that we can have victims who say they want to go to school. Those who want to go to school can go to school from NAPTIP. 5 of our victims have gone to school and graduated as university graduates from NAPTIP. From closed shelters, yes. During that period, because when we receive them, they tend to do is, first of all, we try and do family tracing to understand after the profiling has been done, do psychosocial support, then that will help us understand the need of that victim. The victim rehabilitation is also with the consent of the victim. So we don't force them to what they don't want. But while all this is happening, the officers will have gone to trace where this victim is from. Whether it's conducive, it's been to return the victim back to the family. What are the triggers that actually made that victim go in the first place? So if it is not safe, and the victim says, I don't want to go back, completely. We don't force the victim to go. The victim stays with us. 3 victims that went to school, graduated, are working in NAPTIP right now. Yeah. So it's a very intricate thing that we do, but people don't understand, and it is not easy because there's a lot of money that required for a victim to be cared from the date of the reception. That victim is exposed to medical support, which says, first of all, we check, are you okay? What kind of medical care do you need? And remember that many of them come down with post-traumatic stress disorder. These are individuals who are maybe during the course, depending on where the victim was retrieved, you had been sleeping with as much as 30, 40 men a day. I participated in Operation Timbuktu in Mali, and I brought back a victim that was taken to Mali when she was 13, has stayed 3 years in Mali, now 16, and sleep with as much as 40 men every day. So, and when I said, thank God the government funded it, with the Office of the National Security Advisor, we brought back 104 Nigerian girls were brought back from Mali. So like Mali and in Bamako there, in brothels, the lowest and the seediest kind of place you can imagine that somebody will be working.
They're on transit?
They're on transit, but suddenly their traffickers are, because the moment you leave here, what the trafficker is thinking about is money. And prostitution can happen anywhere. Your exploitation can happen anywhere. One thing with that merchandise, which is human being, is that you are there at the mercy of the trafficker. It depends on what he's training and what the trafficker wants to do with you. If organ is what he wants, he sells the organ.
Are current sanctions for traffickers sufficient deterrence?
I like to answer that question. You know why? I was in Benin when that particular day when Anini and Osumba were being shot at the stake. That day, 5 people lost their cars who came to watch that happen. Lost their cars where Anini and Osumba were being shot at the stake. Are sanctions the issue? Sanctions are the issue because in 2015 amendment, what the law was able to do was to put in place a minimum sentencing regime, which makes it that you cannot get anything minimum of 10 years. You can get life imprisonment for trafficking in persons. So what more can somebody do? I think it's high time we begin to address the issue of the triggers.
Exactly.
If we address the triggers and make home, the number of Nigerians that are speaking about Jabba, because those are the new terms that have been brought about, everybody wants out. I hear young people tell me, I'd rather die in the Mediterranean than suffer in front of my mother. Those are the kind of terms I hear. Those are the phraseologies that I use, meaning that their desperation is unending. They don't want anything. We feel that this country, I and my generation, we have failed them. That is it.
But how is UNODC helping in this area? Because addressing these triggers may not necessarily be the responsibility of NAPTIP, but NAPTIP definitely needs partnership and assistance to be able to do something.
Yeah.
Yes. So how is UNODC supporting?
Okay. UNODC, we are a very research-based organization also. I will start from there. And a lot of the information that we have are evidence-based, based on research that we've conducted. The 2020 UNODC Global Report on Human Trafficking buttressed some of the points that Mr. Arinze raised. And while looking at those findings from some of the research that we've done, for UNODC, one of the things that we have done here in Nigeria is also to start engaging with the embassies and foreign missions that are here in Nigeria. And so every quarter we have that embassy liaison meeting between NAPTIP and those embassies. Because what it does is that, one, it allows the foreign missions in Nigeria to see the efforts and appreciate the efforts of Nigeria government through NAPTIP, and to also see some of the challenges that we have so that we all can work towards combating human trafficking. And it also puts on alert those countries where it's becoming the trend destination in the JAPA process of young people. For instance, when we had the last embassy liaison meeting, we realized that now the destination is becoming towards India, for instance, for studies. And a lot of cases are now coming out from India. People traffic there for study purpose and then end up being exploited, because what the trafficker does is to collect your identity, which is your passport. So because without that you cannot even go to the Nigerian embassy in those countries to actually seek for refuge or ask for assistance.
Yes,
because
but my question is, what is the intervention to enable these would-be victims
Yes.
who have genuine interest in studying, for instance, in India,
Yes.
to be able to get legitimate access?
Yes, all of that is still what we do with the embassy liaison. Because one, we are also using the embassy liaison meeting to popularize some of the policy areas of Nigerian government and some of the things that they need to look out for. Because when you look at it, people get their visas from some of these embassies and they provide documentation before they get the visas for study or for anything that they are doing. So we need to let the embassies know that there are more things to look out for before you issue study visas. Recently also, NAPTIP has the TIP clearance portal. The TIP clearance portal is in line with the regulation 2019, which is the regulation of services, of centers, of shelters, of service providers for travel and tour, for studies, and for different actions. And now what we have done is to translate that policy document, this is it that I'm holding, into an electronic portal where if you are going outside of the country for sport activities, you need to register through that TIP clearance portal. A certificate will be issued to you, and when you get to the airport, because also every the validation process concerns every ministry and the department and agency that is involved in the travel. So if it's for sports, when you do the application for sports, the Ministry of Sport approves and validates your request. When you get to the airport, the immigration take the certificate, put it the number on the tab, and check that indeed you have been validated to travel, and you have there is a place where we can trace you when you get there. If it's for the purpose of a study tour for schools that are taking children for study tours, it's the same thing. They have to apply, then Ministry of Education validates. When they get to the airport, the Nigerian Immigration Service looks at the certificate that has been issued. If it's for the purpose of domestic labor, because Nigeria also has agreements with some of countries for labor, for skilled labor and unskilled labor. So you cannot say you won't allow people to go for skilled and unskilled labor as long as it's regulated. If it's that one, Ministry of Labor also validates. When you get to the airport, the immigration looks at that. So you have...
Yes, so, you know, I get what you're saying, but Bello, I don't know, like a few days ago there was a report, you know, in one of the dailies of, in fact, it's not a report, it's a warning, I think from the office of the Diaspora Commission. I'm not sure now, I stand to be corrected, about the traffic of, you know, Nigerians being trafficked to Cyprus, for instance, because
Northern Cyprus.
Northern Cyprus,
Yeah.
in search of, you know, schools. Yeah. So is there anything that, for instance, anything we can do, maybe between governments of this country to kind of provide certain, maybe quota? Okay, this is a I don't know, you know, for Nigerians, so that when somebody comes to you to say, look, we are taking you to a particular country to study, look, we know that this country has given us quota, our quota is filled, so there's nothing like you're going to this place for studies. I don't know, do we have that kind of...
Well, I think it also boils down to the trigger issue that you mentioned.
Yes.
But if we, you know, it may be difficult for us to stigmatize any country and say, don't go to this country because this is what they do. Because I think it can cause
No, I have not
issues.
said, I have not
No,
said
I'm just
that.
going, I'm saying that.
Okay.
But what we can do, I'm aware that for everybody that want to seek education opportunity in the West or any other place, there are procedures that they go through. Sometimes I'm aware that you have to go through Ministry of Education to get some clearance. So I think that is where their own role also comes in, and there must be government direction in that area, where if you need to get clearance from Minister of Education or Minister of Foreign Affairs, because I'm aware those are places you need to go through some clearance before you can be able to acquire the necessary certification for you to be able to proceed.
How seamless is that? That's what I'm saying.
You know, it may not really be similar. I'm only saying that okay.
Now, it is seamless to the extent that I know that IOM has the Migrant Resource Centers, MRCs, and they're located in Benin, they're in Abuja here, they're in Port Harcourt, and they're in Lagos. And NAPTIP, migration, I keep telling Nigerians, migration is your right. NAPTIP was not set up to stop you from migrating. All we are saying, do not become a victim of irregular migration or illegal migration. Because out there, you are at the mercy of criminals who will exploit you or who can do dangerous things to you. If you ask questions, we are not there to set, both IOM, UNODC, FIAP is not there to stop you from migrating. That question can actually help you. I'll give you an example. In 2014, one young man woke up in Lagos and said he had the permission of the Canadian or Australian people to bring 8,000 Nigerians to those countries. And he did a seminar, taught them how to move about and how to conduct themselves in a foreign country. And what happened? NAPTIP went there. This didn't happen in Lagos. NAPTIP went there. They chased NAPTIP officers away. Until suddenly, maybe 2 weeks after, the man now said that, yes, that the aircraft came. And that the aircraft had a burst tire and that he wants to go and repair the tire. And that they should contribute money. After they had paid 62,000 naira each. They paid 62,000 naira each. So they now pay 2,005 so that they can change the tire to vulcanizer and vulcanize it.
The airplane.
I am telling you. And this aircraft is supposed to carry how many? 8,000 Nigerians.
So when they paid that money, they paid the 64,500 naira each, and this man disappeared into the thin air. NAPTIP chased him, we used the Interpol, every resource to hunt this guy. He shut down all his wall and disappeared. Now, if at that point that NAPTIP came, I went down to Lagos to go and bring the 8,000 passport. And we actually did in consultation with Australian and Canadian ambassadors, high commissioners, and they were in office and said, this is a lie. Right now, many Nigerians are still falling prey to American visa lottery. That had been stopped a long time. A long time that had been stopped. Why? Because many of us still want out. People are not mindful of the kind of things they see in social media, and which is why this came up in the world against and said technology, abuse and use, because these are things that fast track and people use to employ or deploy for criminal purposes and trafficking in persons. So what we will do is just to keep talking about it and make people understand that there's a thin line between the truth you hear and the falsity that are bound in the social media space. Okay, so many things.
Yeah, earlier I raised the question about the adequacy of current sanctions, and then you cited the example of the public execution of armed robbers in 1987. Yeah. Sometime around March or April 1987. I had covered the trial in 1986. But we have seen in recent times, on account of the menace of kidnapping, some states have passed legislation that anyone who is convicted of a kidnapping offense is death penalty. We have also seen in at least one or two states, Peter Obi during his time, some of those kidnapping kingpin in Anambra, if they caught you, whatever you use the money, the structure you use the money for will be reduced to ground zero. And you have said, Oracle, that what matters to the trafficker is money. So that's what I'm saying. Is there no way you can, or the law can seek to target the profit from trafficking?
Yes, in the 2015 repealing and reenacting of the act actually does that. Now we are not just convicting traffickers. We are also looking at the proceeds of crime. And by that, what the law does is that anything which must have been gotten through your commission of that crime, properties, monies, will be taken up by the order of the court after your conviction and paid for the rehabilitation of the victim, not for NAPTIP, for the victim that you obviously have exploited.
Have we seen this happen in court?
No, it has happened. It has happened. It has happened. It has happened.
But there's no capital punishment just yet for.
No, there's no capital punishment.
There's no capital punishment.
No, there's no
just
capital
yet.
punishment.
We're wrapping up now. I just want to throw this in. Are we getting enough sincerity from the receiving countries in dealing with this human menace? Because they seem to be enjoying the cheap labor to a greater extent. Yes, you have tokenist support here and there, but are they crying out that look, we don't want this to happen? Are they picking up their own citizens who are part of the value chain, or they just say, look, this is a black man's problem, you go and face your challenge?
I cannot tell you completely that's happened. And like the Reverend Father Obiezi said, if we target, so long as demand is still an issue, so long as demand for sex is still an issue, there's no way we won't continue to have people go there for sex exploitation or be exploited in that industry. So right now, countries like France, Norway, Iceland, Sweden, and Ireland have criminalized the purchase of sex, making demand a crime. So, and we're asking them, please employ the Nordic model.
Please round off your thoughts.
Yes. Now, if you employ the Nordic model, so long as none is buying, none will sell.
All right. I like to, commend you for this last contribution. Arinze Orakwe, Director Training in Manpower, National Agency for the Prohibition of Trafficking in Persons, NAPTIP. Thank you very much for your perspective. Let me also appreciate Abimbola Adeomi, who is the team leader, Human Trafficking and Migrant Smuggling Unit of the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime. Thank you very much for your perspectives as well. And Billy Omotosho, Technical Advisor, Governance Action Against Trafficking in Persons and Smuggling of Migrants project implemented by FIA.
Thank you so much.
Sorry?
Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you very much as well. And we also would like to appreciate, I'm sure, Kester, you did appreciate him.
We already signed him off.
Yes,
That's Emeka
right.
Okay, that's it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you for tuning in. The program returns on Monday, usual time, which is 7 o'clock in the morning. We look after ourselves, enjoy your weekend. I'm Kingsley Osadolo.
Rape is a crime. Stand up and take action against the rapist. Join us and be a star. We'll see you next week. By God's grace. Bye-bye from all of us.